Do you remember the Ford Pinto? If not, there's a reason for that. If you do, then you're probably as old as I am, but that's okay. Let me tell you why the Ford Pinto is a perfect example of corporate violence and how we are facing that same violence today with data centers. So here's the story. Back in the 70s, Ford wanted to be first. They wanted first movers advantage. They wanted to be the first to manufacture a low cost, low weight, high fuel efficient vehicle. And they were. They moved 800,000 units of the Ford Pinto in the first 2 years of manufacturing, but it came at a cost because in order to get manufacturing up, they didn't quite do things the way they would normally do them. And they realized during testing that if the Ford Pinto was hit from the back, that it would cause the fuel to leak and the car to explode. So they did more research to see, how to fix this, and they got the cost to fix it. And then they realized they didn't want to pay that money. They also didn't want to invest that money into correcting the mistake on the new vehicles that they manufactured. So they ran more numbers, and they realized it would be cheaper to set money aside, a part of the budget, to settle the lawsuits that would inevitably be faced from the family members of the people who had lost their lives. Corporate violence. How does that tie into data centers? I'm so glad you asked. We have research that tells us how dangerous data centers are. Not just the noise and what it does to the animals and life creatures in our areas, but also the pollution, the pillaging of resources. It is catastrophic. And you will hear people talk all about all of the economic benefits, but at what cost? And who pays it? It's corporate violence. See, what these data centers are deciding is that profits are way more important than people. These corporations, they are doing just what Ford did in the 1970s. And they have determined that there is not a cost that outweighs the benefit of the profits that they will make from these data centers. And what is even more egregious is that our politicians agree. I live in Mississippi. There are data centers that are being approved all over this state, to the detriment of the residents of this state. And we see frequently local elected politicians on the news touting what a great success it is, but they are not talking about the actual cost. See, for Ford to fix that mistake on the Ford Pinto, for that low cost, low weight, high fuel efficient vehicle that they wanted to make, it would have been $11 per vehicle. $11 is what it would have cost to correct the mistake, to save the lives. But that cost was too great for them. How much is too much for you? How much is too much for your children or your elderly parents, your neighbors, your friends, your church members? How much is too much? How much is too much to pay in increased utility bills? How much is too much in increased healthcare cost? How much is too much in time off of work because you or your children or your parents are sick? How much is too much when you cannot cook food for your family because your water is contaminated? What I know is that you and me, we are much more than a line item on a spreadsheet labeled loss. We are creators and innovators, cultivators, teachers, theologians. We are people with lives, with children, with families. We contribute to our community, we pay our taxes, and we elect officials that should represent us. But at some point, these large corporations, these elected officials decided that there is not a cost that is too much, that it is completely fine to come to our state, pillage our resources, pollute our air, make our residents sick, and place the cost on the constituents. The cost is too great. It's not okay because you are not a line item on a spreadsheet labeled loss.